What's up, everyone? What's good to everybody on Instagram? What's good to everybody on YouTube? This is Dr. Nee. I'm joined by
Dr. Renée.
This is another episode. I'm cutting that off. This is another episode of
I'm
Docs
still
Outside.
going.
All right, keep going. Finish it. This is another episode of Docs Outside the Box. Hey, we doing things differently. This is not an interview. This is not just us, talking about whatever. This is us actually doing a book review on this right here, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. This is a book review. Hey, look, we're going to have to put explicit on this episode, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking so.
But this is a book that I finished reading a couple of months ago. Been meaning to do this as a review, but just life happens. So we're doing a review right now.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about if this book is life-changing. Should you pick up this book? Who's this book for? I just like the way in which, the system in which I'm using to keep notes on these books. And I'm just going to use that to determine if you should read this. Right? So we're going to parse it down. But before we parse things down, let's go ahead and jump into, is it a review or a text message?
It's a text message.
Okay.
So we got a text message from Jamar, remember? And Jamar was
good. Jamar is the one who signed up for Freshly.
Yeah, so you remember. Look at you.
Yeah.
That's right, using that memory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Jamar wrote us a text and he said, so I got a shout out on the show for trying Factor meals. Very cool. I definitely like their meals and selections. You can have them curate the meals based on your dietary and weight management goals. I'm working on losing weight, so I go with most of their low-carb meals.
Yes.
The food is great for the convenience, which is what we pay for. And they arrive on time and are packaged well. I definitely like to order them mostly for weekdays when I feel busy between working full-time and school.
Right.
So on weekends, I'll usually prepare something for myself. Thanks for bringing this to our attention. Great service. And then he said, do you want to know what else he said?
Just read do I want to know? Just read what he said.
So then he said, by the way, if there were a biopic, a Dr. Nee Darko biopic, I'm pretty sure Taye Diggs would do well playing you. Ha ha. Have a good one and love how the show is going.
Hey, y'all think I look like Taye Diggs? What y'all think?
Taye Delicious?
No, I didn't say all that. But y'all think I look like Taye Diggs? I don't think so. I think Taye Diggs looks like me.
Alfred.
I was expecting more like actually Denzel Washington. 'Cause I think I
really?
kind of favor him a little bit more.
Alfred, I need you to put side by sides of both Taye Diggs and Denzel Washington.
Put it up and let the crowd choose. Let people from Instagram right now choose Taye Diggs or Denzel Washington.
Taye Diggs or Denzel. Taye Diggs or Denzel. Instagram. Tell us. Let us know.
But yeah, I used to get that in college. I don't know what it is. There's something. I don't know if it's the high cheekbones or something like that. But between me and Denzel, it was just
No, I don't think anybody ever said you look like Denzel. Nee. I don't think that ever happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Jamar, thank you for writing in. Hey, guys, he wrote in actually texting us. So I'm letting you know that we get the text messages. It comes directly to our phones, and we can communicate with you back and forth. It's a really easy way for you all to communicate with us. Let us know what you like about the show. Let us know what you don't like about the show.
Yep.
Let us know if you thought a topic was dope or if it wasn't dope. Or let us know if we talking too much. Either way, it's a quick and easy way for you to keep up with us and for us to keep up with you. And we'll take it from there.
Yeah.
And before we actually jump, there's another thing that we want to talk about. You want to tell them about the INCROWD?
Yeah, so speaking of telling us what you do like and don't like about the show, don't forget we are partnering with INCROWD, and INCROWD basically is a survey company. They are sponsoring our specific survey for our podcast to say, hey, listen, take a couple of minutes and just let us know what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show, what you want to see more of. And then once you finish our quick survey, then you can sign up for INCROWD to be able to give Yeah, for money, yes.
Get money. What you saying, huh?
For money.
Get money. What
to
you
give
saying?
them
What you
your
saying,
medical
huh?
expertise.
Get money. What you saying, huh? Get money. I'm your background singer. Go ahead.
You my background singer.
Yeah.
Basically, INCROWD will allow you to do
Get
more
money.
surveys to share your medical opinion.
Get money.
And basically, yeah, for cash.
Yeah. Fill out a survey. Let us know what you think about the show.
Yeah.
Real quick and simple, and then turn it into using your medical expertise to make some money on the side.
So the link
Simple.
is in the show notes. Once we publish this out on the podosphere.
Yeah. Someone needs to text us and let us know if they're actually reading the show notes. That's what I want to know.
Yeah,
People
okay.
actually reading the
Y'all reading the show notes?
I hope
Tell me.
I hope they are reading the show notes because there's a lot of things in there that we put there. A bunch of links. We put the links to, the INCROWD. We put links to the books that we're reading. We put links to the equipment that we're using to start this podcast. So it's really useful. And I just don't want to say it over and over and over again on the show. Right. And, people get bored of it. So
read the show notes.
How we doing on Instagram? How many people are following us on Instagram?
So I don't know how many people. How does it? Okay, right now we have
just five.
Yeah,
all right, we need more people.
Everybody's sleeping.
We need more people jumping on.
It's like 11 o'clock at night.
Okay, well, either way, people, across the world, they can still check us and let us know it's daytime in
Australia.
In Australia. Well, listen, before we wait too long, this book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. It's a really, really good book. It is a #1 New York Times bestseller. And definitely got a lot of... This book is a really polarizing book.
Okay. Why?
I think a lot of people like it. A lot of people ended up liking it. I think more people ended up liking it. There is a good amount of people who don't like it and have kind of looked at this as almost like millennial bullcrap.
Oh, okay.
Right? Millennial bullcrap.
So the author's a millennial?
I guess they would think he's a millennial, or I think their thinking is millennial-ish.
Okay,
right?
Gotcha.
Millennial-ish.
Gotcha.
It's written by Mark Manson. This is the same gentleman who has helped Will Smith write his book, Will.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you look at the book for Will, it says Will Smith and also says Mark Manson on it.
That's right.
And it says basically this is a counterintuitive approach to living a good life. And I read it. I read it twice actually.
Okay.
Because the first time I read it, I was kind of leaning more on this is some millennial BS, and I don't know if I'm
Get off my lawn.
I don't know if I'm really feeling it. And then I read it again, and then I separated myself from actually the author. Like, when you're reading a book, you can perceive what the author's trying to tell you, as opposed to just listening to what the message is. That's the thing that I had to do. So sometimes you have to separate the messenger from the message.
Right.
And that's the theme with me the second time I read the book.
Okay.
So if I were to give you this book in 3 sentences, it's going to be, I got my notes here, is number 1, be careful what you choose to give a F about. Okay? Be very careful what you choose to give an F about. And I'm going to go into later on what he means by Fs and not giving an F and so forth. Number 2, choose values and standards that you can control. Very clear that make people understand this. Choose values and standards that you can control. Yeah. And definitely not based on others.
Right.
And their success or failure.
Right.
And then number 3... this is where he's going against the grain. And this is where on the cover it says the counterintuitive approach to living a good life. Happiness and success entails work, struggle, failure.
Okay.
And if that is not at the root of what you're searching for, you are setting yourself up for anxiety, stress, and the feeling generally that you don't live up to others or some type of made-up standard. So if I can say that again, the 3 sentences that make up this book, in my opinion, are 1, be very careful what you choose to give a F about. Number 2, choose values and standards that you can control. Happiness and success entails work, struggle, and failure. And if that is not the root of what you're searching for, you're going to be setting yourself up for anxiety, for stress, for the feeling that you just don't pan up, don't, man up, don't, whatever you want to do. You don't man up with what someone else is standards and so forth is. So what do you think about that? Any thoughts?
That kind of sounds like the way I think.
I'll be very obvious. I'll be very honest. This book is it puts what's obvious out there on Front Street.
Right.
He does a really good job of putting out a whole bunch of different examples. And you're like, oh yeah, like, of course that's true.
Right.
And I think
right.
that's the reason why a lot of people like it. Because it's very like there's this saying that what's obvious to you may not be obvious to others, right? Mm-hmm. How you got into medical school or you and what you're doing as an OB doc and how you take care of people, that's extremely obvious to you because
Right.
you've done it so long.
So many times, yeah.
But to people who are not in medicine or to someone who may be in medicine but not at your level may not find that obvious.
Right. I just had that discussion actually.
Yeah.
As the audience may or may not be able to see on YouTube anyway, the audience will be able to see I got my hair cut down again. But we were talking about, I was talking about with the hairdresser, how she can increase her business. And she just has a sign, but she doesn't have any sort of graphic, right? No sort of picture to show that this is a hair salon. Right? And so we were talking
where's she
about
going with this?
No, we were just talking about the fact.
Where's she going with this?
Would you stop talking and I could tell you where I'm going with it? So we were talking about it, so the salon is obvious to her because it's her salon.
Right.
But me, I passed that salon how many times before I ever realized that there was a salon there? So when I said to her, I was like, well, it may be obvious to you, but it wasn't obvious to me. And so you might have to make something a little more obvious for people to be able to see that this is an actual hair salon and that they should be able to come in and to know exactly what your clientele is,
Right.
Who you're looking for. So I get that.
Yeah, I agree. So yes, that's an example.
Is that satisfactory for you? Where I was going.
That's a satisfactory example.
Okay, thank you.
What's obvious to you may not be obvious to others, and this book is very obvious. It gives very obvious reasons as to why, like there's going to be work, there's going to be struggle, there's going to be failure with happiness. But I don't think we actually really understand it because I think a lot of people believe that happiness is just happiness. Like you find happiness and that's it.
Right.
You find success and that's it. And what this book is really saying is that we have to reformat our minds and really kind of look at things from the standpoint of if we're always happy, is that a facade?
So,
and what exactly does happiness mean? So for y'all that are listening, like this is something that I think if you don't really pay attention to this book, you're like, well, what the hell are you talking about? Of course I want to be happy. Of course I want to be successful. Then you're like, wait, hold on. What are you saying? Are you saying that I have to be miserable to be happy? No, that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is that there are problems out there and you're always going to be faced with problems. And if you are going for a life where there's not going to be problems that you can solve, then you're setting yourself up for a world where you're going to be pissed off, you're going to be disappointed. Yeah. Because there's always a problem. And then when you solve that problem, there's another problem after that.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
I kind of look at it like the way how we train residents.
Yeah.
Like we protect residents for good reason with duty hours. Right? We protect residents with duty hours, but then we throw them out into a world where there aren't any duty hours.
Right.
And oftentimes when you are as an attending, you're doing way more hours than you are as a resident currently.
Right.
I'm not saying that it's wrong to do duty hours. I'm just saying we're preparing them to do duty hours for
what purpose?
Reason.
Yeah.
I get it. You don't want them to be tired, but you haven't changed the end product. So that's what I'm talking about here. So
no, I get that. So speaking of, I did have another conversation. I had a conversation with the pre-med and we were talking about her taking the MCAT for the third time. And she just like, first the conversation was all great and everything. As soon as we got to the MCAT part of the conversation, I mean, she just shut down. And I was like, what's the problem? She's like, well, I don't want to take it the third time. It's just, it just feels like, I'm a failure and things like that. And I was like, let me tell you something. I was like, you cannot bring that feeling with you everywhere you go, that you shut down every single time you hit a challenge. I said, because what you are talking about right now is taking the MCAT, but eventually you're talking about going to medical school. And you know what's harder than the MCAT? Medical school. There's more of a challenge. You know, there's more of a physical challenge, more of an intellectual challenge. There's just going to be more challenges. And so you've got to bring with you a mindset that says that you're going to just take on challenges and jump over these obstacles. Because at the end, you'll be able to look back and be like, yo, I did that. Right. You know what I mean? Because if it were easy, then everybody would do it.
Renee with the not so obvious stories, man. You're just like, it's taking you. I'm like wondering, like, where are you going with these damn stories, yo? But all right, I feel you on it. Look, let's jump into how I discovered this book. So,
was the book obvious?
So I discovered this book through. I mean, there's if you're this book. So many people on podcasts are talking about this book. If you go to YouTube, it's gonna come up on your algorithms. It's just the honest truth, right? Yeah. Like, and then ultimately, I was reading or listening to another audiobook, and then they suggested this book, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember so many people talking about this, 2 or 3 years ago. It's about time I read it or listen to it. Right. And that's how I found out about it. Now, the question is who should read this? Definitely number one is creators. Mm-hmm. And that could be anything. Creators who are creating YouTube videos, podcasts, who are creating blogs, whatever it may be, that type of creator. Creators could also be business owners. Creators can be anything
type of entrepreneur.
Anything that you want to put out there that's going to take some toil, that's not already formed for you, that you got to put into work to actually build this process day by day. This book is for you. Also, for someone who may have felt like they may have peaked already in life, maybe they're mid-career, they're in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, or 60s, and they feel like, I need a refresh. Right. I need a reboot on life. I think that this book is for you. Right. And I'll get into it a little bit more, but these are the people who I'm thinking about this book is for. Now, I know you haven't read the book, but
no.
I think
is this book for me?
No, this book is not for you.
Why?
No, this
Why is the book not for me?
No, this book is not for you. You'll find out, but this book ain't for you. You already got the concepts down. I think this book is for those two. I think those set of people. I'm a creator, right? I'm someone who, there's always something new that's coming up with creating, right? There's always some new problem that we got to work on. We've been talking about this for the last 48 hours, right? Yeah. But then we think about it, and we're like, well, actually, that's good problems that we're having. Right. Let's keep moving. Let's keep it moving. Right. So. Now, let's get into how the book has changed me. So the book has changed me in actually no ways. I'm going to be very honest. Like I said, this is an obvious book. It's worth the read, but
I'm in fact zero.
I didn't find this book life-changing at all, right? Really? So I'm using this rating system where, it's like 5 stars is for... there's life-changing 5 stars, and then it's 4 stars. And then anything below that, I'm not even rating it, right? So I think this is a 4-star book.
Okay. Why do you say that?
I think it's good, but I don't think it's life-changing. I don't think it's an excellent, this is an excellent read. I think this book is a vibe, and, when you're at this spot, you're like, oh yeah, that's true. I do need this reminder. Do you see what I'm saying? This book is a reminder type of book. And then it gives really good examples that you're like, yeah, like, I see what I'm saying. My compass is right, or I need to kind of tweak my compass a little bit. Whereas Will Smith's book, when we get to that, I'm like, whoa. Or the Atomic Habits, like it's completely, I think, is a life-changing book.
Well, yeah, you changed your life literally.
Right. So for me, I don't think
Atomic Habits.
Like I have in my notes, like it's confirmatory that nothing worth having is not without sacrifice. Like you already know that. Right. If it's worth having, if you want to be happy about it, you're gonna have to sacrifice something to get to that point. Right. So I don't think there's going to be any changes to my behavior. But like I said, it is going to change how I look at business. Okay. It changes the way how I think about my business thoughts, how I look at my business ideas, and just kind of understand that it is okay to go through struggle. Right. Right. We just found out that the rental property that we have, the roof, we just fixed the roof for like $14,000, y'all. And we just found out there's a hailstorm. And now there's another leak. So we're going to have to spend some type of money to figure out how to get this fixed. Right. But that struggle right there is the process of being a homeowner. Right. Or excuse me, the process of being a property owner, a landowner. Right. And we're going to have to go through the process of figuring out how to put in an insurance claim. And then we're going to have to figure out the process of working better with, contractors. Right. Guaranteeing our work. All of these problems make us better. As opposed to being like, damn, why me? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, we never going to get through this. We never going to be happy when we should just be happy that, oh, well, We solved one problem, but it's going to lead to another problem.
Right.
And that's the essence of the book, is that when you solve one problem, you're going to have another problem.
Yeah.
So are you going to just be focused on the fact that you keep getting these problems? Or are you going to take solace in knowing that, hey, I can solve problem A, I can solve problem B, and go from there?
Yeah. No, I get that. I think, I think for me,
So Dr. Boadu, wealth
on
coach.
Instagram.
Yeah, on Instagram, he says, I gave away my copy to my younger sister. I only read a chapter, but I'm already about that life. I agree with you, Dr. Nee. Say, I appreciate that, Dr. Boadu. Hey, we in a recession or what?
So no, I definitely agree with that. You solve one problem, it's going to be another. I've always said I'm a problem solver, right? Like,
So that's why you're happy all the time.
well, it's not why I'm happy all the time. But that's actually one of the things I think you can't stand about me, is that every time you come to me with a problem, I'll be like, oh, you know what? You could do this. You could do that.
No. That's not the. No.
What?
The issue
What?
that I have with you is why would I be upset about you being able to solve a problem? The issue is that you look for problems in every situation. And it's like this long conversation. Like before we drive out of the driveway, hey, what happens if someone hits us? What should we do then?
No.
What
I'm
happens
not
if the car flips over? What do we do then?
No,
What happens
I
if it
don't
rains
think
while we're
so.
pulling? You're like, God damn, can we just move? Like, come on.
That you know what?
You do. And that's why you say you're a planner.
You are exaggerating.
I'm exaggerating, but you are a planner. And sometimes you overplan a certain situation, but it's not problem solving. Who would have a problem with someone who's a problem solver?
Anyway, that is not true. And like I was saying, the fact is that
IG, y'all know what's up.
no, they don't know what's up.
YouTube, y'all know what's up.
YouTube don't know what's up
Podcasts.
either. Podcasts don't know what's up
Podcasts
either.
are like,
Don't nobody know what's
we're
up.
not getting no love.
No, you know what? Alfred, shut this down right now. Okay. Anyway,
I'm actually allowed to talk to Alfred, not you.
Whatever.
Thank you.
But the point being that for me, I'm a problem solver, right? So I can see why this book would not necessarily be life-changing for me, just kind of based on what you said. I don't know. I didn't actually read the book, but because I'm a problem solver, I don't actually see a problem with problems. I see a problem as, oh, okay, I got to get to, I got to jump this hurdle to get to the next hurdle, because there always is going to be another hurdle.
Right.
And so, I
Just
think
like that Haitian track runner.
yeah, basically.
Yo, Alfred, if you can
need
find
some
a video,
B-roll.
put a video of that Haitian.
The Olympic.
Oh man, I felt so bad for him.
Why you laughing at my countryman, yo?
Damn.
Why you laughing?
He was
at
looking
him?
all like he had his chain on and looking all
He was
dapper.
ready. He was jumping up.
And then he
ready
got
to
through the
go.
first two steps. Whoop, whoop. Anyway, I cut you off. Go ahead.
But I think that's the point. That's the point of life, right? Is that you're never going to be without problems. And for me, I find joy in actually solving problems, which is why I always call myself a problem solver. If somebody comes to me, I'm always looking for a way to solve that problem, And for me, I think sitting back and being like, damn, like, yeah, I did that, or I solved that problem. I think that's where you find the joy. You find the joy in the accomplishment, of doing something that you didn't think that you could do.
Right.
Instead of, oh, look, somebody gave you $1 million for working, for nothing, basically. It's like, yeah, that might make you happy in the short term, but in the long term, that's probably not going to make you happy.
Right.
Because what did you do for it?
Right. I agree. Okay. So here are my top 3 quotes. First quote is, in life, we have a limited amount of fucks to give, so you must choose your fucks wisely. That's in quotes. So
How many you got?
I got very little after reading this book. Right. Here's another quote. I wanted the reward and not the struggle. I wanted the result and not the process.
Oh.
I was in love with the fight, but only I was in love with not the fight, but only the victory. And life doesn't work that way. That's another quote.
What am I thinking about?
I know, but hold that thought. Hold that thought. So let's hear that again. I wanted the reward and not the struggle. I wanted the result and not the process. I was in love with the fight, but only the victory, and life doesn't work that way. That's a really powerful quote. And then the next one is, I struggled with 5 quotes, so I'm going to choose this one. Improvement at anything is based on thousands of tiny failures, and the magnitude of your success is based on how many times you failed at something. If someone is better than you at something, then it's likely because she has failed at it more than you have. If someone is worse than you, it's likely because he hasn't been through all of the painful learning experiences you have. Boom. What do you think?
So all of that, all of that, and you know what I was thinking when you read that second part.
Well, let's break down the whole thing about.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that he's talking about is entitlement, right? He says entitlement is a cause of the reason why a lot of people aren't happy. And we'll get into it later on. But basically what he's saying is that a lot of people feel that they're entitled to certain things. They feel like they don't want to put in the work, or they may not even know this at all, but there's a certain amount of effort, work, sweat that they have to put in to get to an end product. And sometimes they may see the prize and may not fall in love with the process. So I'm gonna stop delaying.
Because you know exactly who I'm thinking
and make it good though, please, because like your stories have been kind of meandering. Get to the point, man.
No, man, you need a little bit of a journey.
All right, but come on,
like enjoy yourself.
Like this is a podcast, not a.
Anyway, no, what I'm thinking about is your mentee or your former mentee. I don't know if he's still your mentee. Is he?
After listening to this, he may be my former. I don't know.
So for all of you guys out there in podcast land, so Nee had a mentee. And this was back in, I think, 2012. And you said to me that this mentee was in college and he was shadowing you while you were in residency, when you were at Grady. And this kid would do like 24-hour calls with you and like be there all the time. And he was just following you all the time.
Yeah, he was mainly at night.
He was mainly at night.
There was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of drama with traumas and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, he really, really enjoyed following the trauma team and things like that. And so you took him on as a mentee. Well, fast forward about 2-3 years later, and he writes to you that he wants to get into a post-bac program, right? And he had just graduated from college, is my understanding. And he wanted to get into a post-bac program almost immediately after graduating from college, or at least a year out or something like that. Is that correct?
That's not how well, yeah, but I think your comments came before he graduated.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't before he graduated, because you told me in 2012 he was trying to get into a post-bac program, and he had lined up a couple of post-bac programs that he was applying to.
Okay.
And I said, well, tell me a little bit about him. You told me about the whole shadowing you and things like that. And then you said he wanted to get into a post-bac program. I asked you why, and you said, well, his grades weren't all that great. And I said to you, well, sound like he want to be a doctor, but he don't want to go to med school.
Yeah, I didn't get that at first.
You didn't get it at first.
I didn't get it at first, but then it clicked. Because he was spending a lot of time, on call when we were on call. And he, it was just almost like, dude, you going to class? Because you get all the time. Like, when you going to class?
Right.
Even we were on call every 4th night. And it was just like, so what are you doing in between?
Right. Because you got to be tired.
Right.
You got to be tired. You doing all of these, calls and stuff. And so you didn't get it. And my point at that point was he really needed somebody to sit him down and let him know that you can't get the glory of being in the trauma bay without the pain of going through medical school and residency. You can't get that. And just going through the motions of a post-bac program after you just literally went through the motions of college is not going to get you there. And he probably needed to sit back and just think about, is this something I actually want to do? Not the trauma, but the actual schooling. Is that what I want to do? Because I got to do that first before I get into anybody's trauma bay and start treating patients. And so I don't know whatever became of him.
Yeah. We lost contact, but I think that's a great example. But also, even with people who I coach for podcasting, they see where we're at with the podcast, or they listen to their favorite podcast and they want to be at that same level. as they, when they are starting.
Right.
And I say, look, you got to be in love with the process, not the prize, because it's going to be very hard for you to keep going day in and day out, week in, week out, month, whatever, all these years,
right,
and putting out podcasts when all of you are expecting is to be, this amazing podcaster when it takes time, right? It takes time for you to develop the skills on how to interview people. It takes time with all the awkward pauses. It takes time trying to figure out how to do this on YouTube, how to put this on IG. It takes time. But if you were to take that away from me, if you were to take the process away from me,
right,
it wouldn't be worth anything to me.
Yeah.
I do feel like, but I love doing this. Like this is what we enjoy doing. We enjoy going through the process of trying to set the cameras up and the lights up and is it going to match? And then if you look at our earlier YouTube videos when we did it on the iPhone.
Right.
And how bad they were with the lighting and even to, right before it just, that is the whole fun process.
Yeah.
And, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. And so some of the lessons that he's teaching once we get past all the quotes is the first one is stop giving too many F's. So what he means by that is like stop giving an F. And what that means is he's not saying be apathetic, right? Because being apathetic is like what? Being a psychopath, right?
Yes.
Right? If you don't care about anything, you're a psychopath.
Go out here killing people.
Right, but what he's saying is, or a sociopath, right? And maybe not a psychopath, but a sociopath.
A sociopath, yes, right. That's more accurate, yes.
Because who you are is defined by what you're willing to struggle for.
Yeah.
Right? Who you are is defined by what you're willing to struggle for. So what you struggle for should be what you should give a F about. Learn to give a F about what's really important to you. Now, one thing that is going to be really interesting about this is if you learn to give a F about really the things that really are important to you, then what happens is I think a lot of people get stressed, they get anxiety. And I'm talking about just like stress and anxiety generally. I'm not talking about like the medical.
Right.
I'm talking about like just, I'm stressed about this or I'm anxious about this.
Overwhelmed.
Or people pleasing and so forth. What I mean by that is like, if you give a F about what everybody says or what everything's going to, like you won't, like you don't, basically it's almost like you stand for if you stand for everything, you stand for nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So the way how I bring it up is with imposter syndrome.
Right.
Particularly for me in medicine, people are like, well, all the hospitals that you worked at, you're at all of these rural and suburban hospitals. You're the only trauma surgeon there. You are like, you're a minority. Like, why is it that like imposter syndrome is never an issue for you? I was like, because one, I know my training from Morehouse and University of Miami was dope, and I know that there is absolutely nothing that I can do to change someone's mind, particularly a patient's mind, if they think that as soon as I walk into the room that I am
competent.
I'm not competent.
Right.
And with me, like I have to make decisions literally. ER docs go through this. Like you got to make decisions in minutes and seconds. I don't have time to go through this. So if you don't think I'm good enough, then that's your bad, right? Like I really don't have time for that. Now that's not the case for everybody, right? And I'm not saying that everybody should deal with it in that fashion. But for me, I choose not to give a F about what people think about that, right? I choose not to give a F about like that type of situation. I may have imposter syndrome in other things possibly, but in a medical standpoint, I don't have imposter syndrome about that because I choose not to give a F about. I'm like, whatever. Well, like, it is what it is.
I ain't go to med school to, get, all kinds of accolades from every single person that I meet. Like
on this podcast, I have imposter syndrome, though. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, what's your imposter syndrome?
No, I mean, I think it's just. I don't think we need to go into depth because we still got a lot to cover. But I think in general, like, there's some imposter syndrome with doing something that I haven't done before. With medicine, it's rinse, wash, and repeat. Like I'm on autopilot with this. I know this, right?
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
Whereas with something that I'm building from the ground up and trying to figure it out, there's a little bit of some imposter syndrome with it. That's real talk. So the reason I say that is not to poo-poo on anybody else who suffers from imposter syndrome, but is to give an example of how I decided that there's going to be one less thing that I give a F about. And that's what a patient thinks about me prior to getting to know how I'm going to take care of them.
I might be a sociopath.
You might be. You might be. Right? You might be. So the next point that he teaches is happiness is misunderstood, right? So I mentioned this in the previous quotes, but happiness grows from solving problems.
Yay!
Right?
That's me.
You problem solve, and then you should be happy that you have the ability to solve that problem. Then you move on to the next problem, and then you move on to the next problem. That's the key of life, right? And ultimately, it comes down to you don't want a life without problems, he says. You want a life full of good problems, problems that you have skills and that you give an F to solve. That's the other thing.
Right.
Right? These problems are got to be problems that that you give a point to solve.
Child, let me tell you.
You keep going. I'm going to see what people on Instagram are saying.
One of my favorite things to say is NMP.
NMP, what's that?
Not my problem. That is one of my favorite things to say. NMP, not my problem, right? Because let me tell you, you don't have to go looking for problems. They will come looking for you. Now, to go back to what you said about me being a planner and looking for problems, I don't look for problems. I anticipate the problems that are most likely to happen.
Okay.
That's what I do. And you don't like that because you just want to move to the next thing. And I'm like, that's fine. We can move to the next thing. But if we don't plan for this particular problem that is going to rear its ugly head, then we are going to, take longer, or we're going to fail at what we want to do.
But I can understand planning for scenario A through C. You want to plan from scenario A through Z.
No, I don't.
And I'm like, yo, we ain't got time for F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V. We ain't got time for all that.
No, but you do know that I'm the mastermind, right? I'm the mastermind.
You could tell yourself that if you want. I'm not saying it on my show. So
I'm the mastermind. Basically, I see things from the 30,000 foot view, and I can see every detail of how to get there. And you don't. You know this is true. This is why you're not saying nothing. You know this is true.
Well, I can tell you one thing, though, that's really important about the happiness is misunderstood and solving problems and so forth is, I think that's part of the reason why you decided to do locums, right?
Yes.
Is because you realize that, taking a permanent job wasn't going to work for you.
Right.
Right. It wasn't going to work for you. And you could foresee certain issues. And you're like, you know what? Let me go left when everybody's telling me to go right. Mm-hmm. And, I think when you worked locums and then eventually you shifted to employment,
right.
There was even during that process also, you're like, oh, well, I can foresee this happening and this happening. You may want to, I remember you giving me the advice of, you may want to take a break before, we get back from our honeymoon.
Yes.
And start at this time. And these are the type of conversations that I wasn't privy to. And I think a lot of doctors don't necessarily spend, or at least residents, and I think definitely some young attendings don't spend time having these conversations with themselves about, hey, like, what exactly do I want out of life? What will I say yes to? What will I say no to? What are my values? Mm-hmm. What will I accept? What will I don't accept in a job?
Right.
Right. And I think it makes me think of PS&D, actually. It makes me think of Provider Solutions and Development. I know people are like, why? But like, for me, I like the fact that you can talk to folks and let them know, hey, I want to work this type of job lifestyle. Right. I want to work this. I want to work overnights, or I want to work in this part of the country, or I don't want to work in that part of the country. And I think that's important. I think we need to mention it. That's why I mention them, is because I think, ultimately what you pick up what you want to pick up from this book. Whether you think it's a really great book or you think that it's millennial BS, there's still a message to be gained from this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, going back to me choosing locums right out of residency, I think that more residents should probably be having the discussions about what exactly they want their lives to look like, at least in the next 3 to 5 years. You know what I mean? And understanding that getting into a new job from residency is not like getting into medical school. It's not like getting into residency, and Provider Solutions and Development. What I like about them is that, they have they have a forum where you can actually go ahead and learn more about what leverage you have, contract negotiations.
Preach.
For me, all of these things, like, they change your mindset.
Preach.
And they make you realize what your value is, like the value that you're actually bringing to a hospital, instead of, please, sir, may I have some more? Please let me into your medical school. Please let me into your residency, which is literally how I think, a lot of us approach that new job, you know? So, you know, for those of you, like, we're partnering with Provider Solutions and Development. The link is in the show notes, but, you know, I really want you guys to consider them as a really good resource for you because, yeah, we're doing this book review, but I think this has a lot to do with what he's talking about in the book. And maybe it wasn't life-changing for you, but this might actually be a life-changing book for a resident who's not even on that wavelength.
Right.
You know, and so if they go to Provider Solutions and Development and, you know, start seeing what they have to offer, it might click. You know, it might really click to them like, oh, wait a minute, I'm caring about this when I really should be caring about that.
Right.
So,
right. So, you know, one thing that I want to jump into next is I talked about values that you can control. So let's jump into that.
Yeah.
So he says that you have to define your values, right? And you have to examine your values and determine what's not serving you with these values and what is adding, you know, value to you, so to speak, to your values and to your standards. And the way how he breaks it down are values that you can't control are bad values to follow. I'm going to say that again. Values you can't control are bad values to follow. So, for
like
example,
other people's values.
well, like other people's values, but two good examples. Honesty. You control how honest you are, right? Right? We control how honest we are on this podcast and so forth. We're very honest, right? And then there's punctuality, right? That's an example that he uses.
Ciao. All y'all CPT people. Is my sister out there listening? Because she is the queen of CPT.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that. So, okay, so punctuality can be an issue. You got me smirking. I don't want to, because this is on video, I won't call her out, but she is late as hell, yo.
She knows she's always late, please.
So, you know, you want to be able to control values. The values that you control end up being the good values.
Right.
Long story short. Popularity or being popular.
Forget about it.
If that's a value that you have, you got to remember you can't control that, right? Because you can't control other people's thoughts of you.
Yep.
That's an example right there, right? So maybe what we should be trying to do is replace the values that we can't control with values that we can control. So if you have honesty, you have punctuality, and for some reason you value popularity, maybe you should try to replace popularity with kindness, right? Like these are things that you can control. These are things that you can, it may be hard to measure, but it depends on how you face the outward world as opposed to how people perceive you.
Yeah.
Right. So that's something to consider. These are some of the thoughts I was like, this is really important. Now, one thing that he did also mention is he's really good at throwing examples. So there's an example that he talks about with Metallica, right? So there's this great guitar player who is amazing, one of the best guitar players out there. He gets kicked out of the band, and then he forms his own guitar band or his own music group, and they end up selling millions of copies.
Right.
I think they end up selling like 25 million copies, and they end up being Megadeth, right? You've heard of Megadeth. I've heard of Megadeth, but the group that he got kicked out of was Metallica.
Right.
Right.
Which everybody's heard of Metallica.
And to this day, this guitarist is still considered, of Megadeth, is still considered one of the best guitarists of all time. But when you hear him talk, even to this day, he continues to compare the sales of Megadeth, the sales of him, to Metallica.
Right.
He'll never compete. He'll never find happiness.
Right.
Because his value is based off of sales that he can't control.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Same thing he did. He did the same thing with, who did he do the same thing with? The Beatles. Right? So the Beatles.
You mean like the Clarences?
No, not the Beatles.
When I, man, do something, man. Shout out to Eddie Murphy. Yo, Eddie Murphy.
Nah.
What about my legs, Eddie Murphy?
This girl's a trip, yo. But
Yo,
he's
Rick needs help. We just gave him some.
Well, can I finish my point? But he's talking about like with the Beatles. And the Beatles, like Ringo Starr wasn't one of the original members.
Oh,
of the
okay.
group. It was I forget what the name of that. I forget who the name of it was.
It was Clarence.
But it was a Clarence. But he got kicked out, and he was at one point close to suicide. He was at one point close to a whole bunch of different things that were really negative. And eventually he ended up finding his wife. And over the next several decades, they interviewed him, and he was like, yeah, like what the Beatles were able to accomplish has been amazing. But if I did not get kicked out of that group, I would never have found my wife. I would never have had my kids. I would never have this life. Like, he is completely fine with the life that he has. Right. Like, you see how those two different examples, how obvious they are, those two different examples really solidify the concept of value. For that one member of the former Beatles, the value was his life now, how happy he is, his wife. Whereas for the guy with Megadeth, it's sales. Yeah,
sales, and Metallica sales.
Right. Exactly. Not even Megadeth, Metallica
Yeah, not
sales.
even his own sales, Metallica sales.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that was a really good point. The next thing he also talks about is success starts with failure. I think we kind of already covered that in the beginning of the show.
Yeah. And I think everybody knows that, but not everybody accepts that.
Right.
You know, not everybody accepts that. Everybody knows it. It's, you know, it's no secret. But as soon as people fail, they're like, oh, well, I guess that's it. And it's like, but you do know, like you. And
it is harder nowadays, I think, even to be a business person or to be a content creator, because, you know, we're on Instagram right now and you see all these people who are doing like this. What's the word I want to use? Like business porn or success porn.
Right.
They're just showcasing what they're doing. And you're like, oh, man, like I should be at that point. Why am I not at this point? Why can't I get these numbers? Why am I not getting these downloads?
It's hard.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to quit because I'm not getting these downloads when actually the value that I should be thinking about is how many people are reaching out to us on Instagram, how many people are listening to the show and are communicating with us, how many people are texting us, what type of close relationship are we developing with the people who listen to the show?
Yeah.
And thank you everybody for listening to the show. We really appreciate that.
And I'll take that a step further. I'll actually say before you even worry about how many people are reaching out to you on Instagram or, you know, whatever platform that you're at, are you enjoying what you're doing?
Right.
You know, are you finding fulfillment in what it is that you are doing? You know, like that's so very important for people to like, don't just do stuff because, well, I think it's going to make a whole lot of money, because that is a fast track to unhappiness. You have to be very happy with what you're doing. You have to be proud of what you're doing. I think one of the things that you mentioned, you know, was the honesty and things like that. But there's also the integrity, right? Like, are you a person that when you look at yourself in the mirror, that you can honestly think to yourself, you know what? I'm happy with who I am. You know, and the decisions that I make and the way that I treat people and the consistency with which I live my life. Like that is, for me, that's that internal thing that nobody can touch. Like nobody can touch it. No amount of people on Instagram who's reaching out to you can touch that, you know? And so I think that's where it really starts.
Wholeheartedly agree with that. And then the last thing that you're not going to catch, this one kind of threw me for a loop, is death enhances life. Yeah, so try to think about death, and the closer you get to death, you start to realize how useful you want to be. Right? So he talks about, he took a trip to the Cape he went to South Africa at the most southern tip, which is the Cape of Good Hope. When you go out there, it's just rocks and it's a cliff and it's straight down into the Indian Ocean or Pacific? No, Indian Ocean, right? Indian and Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah,
right?
I think so, yeah.
I can't tell at that tip if it's the Indian or the Atlantic Ocean. I don't know what it is, but you're right at that tip. And if you fall, that's it. So he has a tendency to kind of get really close to death, and it gives him a certain perspective at times. So he talks about that book, about that story. So basically what he's saying is you try to be useful right now, and what he oftentimes see from folks is some people get so focused on creating a legacy that they're not really living for now.
Right.
They're living for decades, you know, and they're not even enjoying the fruits of their life right now. Right. So they choose fame. So, for example, it says here, stop trying to leave a legacy. You too much focus on working too much. Right. Or you choose fame. Right. Or you're chasing fame, or you're focusing on the future. Right. So you're so focused on creating this legacy that you're either working all the time to create that legacy, or you're chasing fame. Right. or you're focusing on the future. Either way, you're not present.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really good point.
I think it's a good point. I think it is a good point to a point.
Yes.
Right?
Well, that's the whole point of this book, I think.
Yeah, right. It's polarizing. I get it. I think to stop creating a legacy, I don't know that I agree with that. Stop creating a legacy. It's like, okay, well, there are some things I think you have to be intentional about because they're not just going to create themselves, And it also, I think, depends on, well, what legacy are we talking about? Because we're talking about, for me, my greatest legacy is going to be my children. So
Correct.
I can't stop investing in my children because that's my legacy.
Well, that's not what he's talking about. I think what he's talking about
I'm saying
is
just don't
I want to create like a cushion, or I want to create a better life for my kids. And then you spend all of your time at work. They have the money.
Mm-hmm.
They have the money, but they never saw you through the process.
Right.
And we know people like that,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Why did I didn't become an OB to have kids. What did they say?
Yeah. I didn't become an OB to be a stay-at-home mom is what she said. Yeah. I was like, I didn't become a mom to spend all my time on the OB ward.
So it depends on how you look at it, but I think that's the point, right? Like you work your ass off, but then there's always going to be a sacrifice on the other end and stuff. So listen, those are the points that I wanted to highlight with The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F, written by Mark Manson.
Okay.
I thought it was a good book, everyone. Once again, we went through the important points. We went through the most important quotes. I gave the book in 3 sentences. We gave our impressions. Is this a book that you should go out and get?
If you're a creator, maybe.
If you're a creator, yes. If you're in business and you're looking to create something from the ground up, yes. Or if you're just looking for something different than the normal self-help book where, it's just about affirmations, or it's just about, just finding happiness and making yourself happy without really getting below the surface and realizing that, hey, you're going to have to put in some work.
Yeah.
Right? And there's going to be some problems. And then once you solve that, there's going to be another problem. And the ability to be able to take solace in figuring out these problems, that's possibly maybe the key to happiness. This book is for you. So any parting words you want to say?
No, I mean, it sounds like a book actually that
Besides
I might enjoy.
Eddie Murphy and Clarence. Hey, man.
Wait, if anybody can text us what reference that was with the Clarences and Eddie Murphy. We're not gonna say, but
if they can't figure that out. But see, the thing is that the millennials ain't gonna figure it out.
Right.
Millennials ain't gonna figure this out. I'm sorry, y'all.
Come on, Gen X. Come on, Gen X.
Y'all not gonna figure this out.
Come on, pull up, Gen X. Pull up.
Or they might surprise us.
All right. No, but it sounds like a book that I would want to read, actually. And, sometimes sometimes I like to read books that are like, I agree with that. And then other times I like to read books that are like, oh, that's a new idea. I never really thought about that. So this sounds like a book that I would want to read to be like, kind of just reminding me, kind of like what you said. It's a reminder of just, the things that I already believe, but maybe just kind of affirming them for me.
There it is, everyone. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F by Mark Manson. Good book. Recommend it. Check out the show notes for links to this book as well as to the INCROWD survey. Let us know what you think so we can make better podcasts, better video, better IG videos for y'all. Shout out to everybody watching us on YouTube. Check out the show notes. Shout out to those on IG right now. We'll catch you guys on the next episode of Docs Outside the Box.
Peace.
Peace.